Hi, even though I'm teaching Media 1, I'm going to be, for this demo video here today in our workshop, showing how to polyurethane this lovely cabin sign that we've made out of a cutting board for some friends of ours. I'm going to be incorporating some video of the process of making this, so I'll kind of be talking through the process, and then I'll be inserting some video that was pre-recorded. So this was a cutting board that was in my family from the time I was, in junior high, all the way up through, my goodness, probably I was 25. So it has lots of markings on it of like knife marks from use and stuff like that, which our friends are chefs, so we wanted it to retain that quality. We don't know what kind of wood it was made of. It's a hardwood of some sort, because if it wasn't, it would be, if it was pine, for example, it would be not a good cutting board because it's a softwood. So it's a hardwood anyway. And it wasn't really treated, especially because it's been so many years. So it was a good piece to choose for staining and then polyurethaning, because it would actually take up the stain. So we started with just the blank cutting board. We used this blue stain, this lovely blue stain that my partner found. And this is the staining process, how that goes. All of this engraving has already been done. I just want to show how we did that, and there's some video that we'll put in here about that. This is the tool that I used, which is a Dremel tool. And I just used this little bit that comes with it. It's called a burr bit. It's kind of a little nub. It does have little grooves in it, however, and it has like a sort of a blunt end on it. And it does remove quite a bit of wood at once, and I usually hold it like a pen, kind of just like this, and use my other hand. I'm right-handed, so I use my other hand to guide it, and it makes it a lot easier to just kind of draw, as if I were just drawing the letter form or drawing the graphic. And this Dremel tool that I have has two speeds, just a low and a high. When I do this work, I do it with the low because I have more control with my hands to be able to follow the letter forms. If I do it on high, it wants to kind of move really quickly across the wood, or more quickly than I like, and will remove more material at once. So the Dremel tool is how that worked. So my partner John is a graphic designer, and so he did this in Illustrator, and then we printed it out here, this graphic in Illustrator, and we printed it out here at home, and we just tiled the paper, tiled the pages to make the actual size, the 1-to-1 ratio size of the graphic, and then he laid it on top of the cutting board, on top of the wood, and he actually traced all the letter forms with a fairly sharp pointed pencil. So it actually just made an indentation in the wood itself. And then he went back, he took this off and he went back over it and actually then drew the pencil line, followed the groove that he had made and drew the pencil line into the wood. It took us a whole day to Dremel out those letter forms, however. So that was the process of staining, and then here is the polyurethane that we've been using. Just be sure that when you choose a polyurethane, you're choosing one that says exterior on the side here, oops, there, as opposed to interior, because this clearly has to weather the elements. And then to be sure it says clear and gloss, because some of them are partially transparent or do have some kind of pigment. Anyway, so just be sure you've chosen the right one. Okay, and then I'm just going to open this up using this tool right here. It's a little bit gunky because I've actually done a few coats of this already, but that's okay. So it's really important not to shake the poly like you would normally shake stain, or you would shake paint, because air bubbles can get trapped in the viscosity of the polyurethane when it's in liquid form. Air bubbles can get trapped in there, and you want to avoid air bubbles. So sometimes people actually pour the polyurethane over the piece and then kind of spread it out with a foam brush, something not super porous, or like a squeegee or something. I've actually applied these in strokes. I'm on about my 5th coat here. So I'm going to go ahead and just dip it in the poly. It kind of looks like that. And then I'm going to go over these little parts here that are just some anomalies that I had from the coat before. Okay, and I'm just going to be sure that those bits are covered. And then I'm just going to take this and apply it in such a way that it's almost just dripping right on the piece. And you can kind of see it can kind of do that, and that's all right. Because if you move in a pretty speedy manner, you can kind of just brush out the puddles that you've just kind of made. Now, when we did the first 2 layers of poly of this, we were working outside at our friend's cabin. And that was the hottest weekend. It was the 4th of July weekend, and it was like 95 degrees. And actually, we were working in the sun. We didn't really have any idea how to use poly yet. And I was kind of doing this action over the letters just to be sure that I got down in the grooves, because it was the 1st and 2nd coat. And before I could go back across and smooth it out like this, it actually had already begun to cure. And so we ended up with these raised little bubbles, these nibs, they call them, that we have never really been able to get rid of. I did try and sand it off. And if you do that, you use like 180 or 220 grit sandpaper. So you can see that I'm just doing pretty broad strokes of this. That. And now I'm just kind of standing up to get my body over it. Be able to use kind of long, broad strokes. And again, just letting it drip right over it is great. Okay, so I started this with a new foam brush, and I can see that I'm getting a little bit of texture on the top, a little bit of bubble marks. And so I'm going to switch to an older brush that is already a little bit set, because I've just been using it over and over again and just storing it in the Ziploc baggie. So it's a little bit kind of hard already, but that's good, because like I said, you don't want to introduce air into it. So this creates almost like a more opaque tool that I'm just using to push the poly around with. And I can see that now that I'm doing this over the top, I've started to lose those little bitty bubbles. So. And again, don't be too concerned about it gathering in the grooves where there are letters and graphic forms. That's okay. Because once you've kind of got a drier bit of foam, you can kind of go through a little bit and kind of just break up where it's really puddling in that. But the poly will dry clear. So it looks a little bit milky when you put it on. And again, don't be afraid of it not staying milky. It will dry clear. It might take a little while, especially if it's a thicker coat of poly, and it depends on the humidity and things. And I'm not wearing gloves here, but I do have some gloves with me, just some plastic gloves, like for cooking. But if you feel like you really are worried about getting that poly in, you can Okay. All right. Now, it looks really quite glossy, and you can kind of see the brush strokes, but not really. But those brush strokes will start to settle out as it starts to cure. And I usually walk away from this for almost the whole day in between coats. It's 24 hours in between coats if you want to sand, to lightly sand. And I just use this sandpaper. And also we do have a sanding block. And the sanding block will allow you to apply pressure evenly. So different parts of it, the sandpaper won't get down in the grooves.